Okay, so it is my honor to introduce Rose Warner from the Department of Labor. So Rose Warner is a policy advisor for the Workforce Systems Policy Team at the Office of Disability Employment Policy at the U.S. Department of Labor. Her responsibilities include being staff lead for ODEP's Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program, a network of over 2,100 individuals from all 50 states focused on increasing competitive, integrated employment for people with disabilities. She also assists ODEP with WIOA implementation as it relates to disability, with a particular focus on individuals with significant disabilities. Prior to joining ODEP, Rose was a government affairs specialist for the National Federation of the Blind, where she focused on labor policy. Rose has a BS in social policy from Northwestern University. Help me welcome Rose.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Gina, for the wonderful introduction. It's truly an honor to be here today representing the United States Department of Labor Office of Disability Employment Policy, or as we're more often called, ODEP. So yes, I am one of those people who have a social policy degree that Bill mentioned earlier. So not quite sure if that's a good or bad thing, but you know, that happened quite a few years ago, so I can't really change that. Sorry. Unfortunately, Patrick Mannix couldn't be here today. It was very last minute, and it's my understanding he's pretty ill. He wasn't in the office on Monday, and I got the word on Fridays that I should prepare just in case. And I found out about 48 hours ago that I was going to be here. So, you know, if I'm a little rusty or not as polished as I would have liked, I apologize up front. So here I am, and here I go. I will be introducing you to ODEP and explain some of the projects my team works on. I will also introduce you to the Secretary of Labor. I will let you know about some of the resources that may be of interest to you. And finally, I will present some of the results we have accomplished through our Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, as you could tell from my bio, this is a bit of a homecoming for me. Went to college about 4 miles up the road from here, so it's nice to be back. Thank you for having me. Sister Rosemary mentioned a state senator who represented Evanston, and ironically, when I went to school at Northwestern in Evanston, I did work for the state senator at the time there. So I'm seeing lots of connections as the day goes forth, so I feel very welcome. Thanks for having me. The Office of Disability Employment Policy was formed in 2001 by an appropriation from Congress. We are strategically and purposefully located within the Department of Labor, the department responsible for jobs, wages, and workplace safety. ODEP is a non-regulatory office, so we heard from Melissa earlier. She works at CMS. They write regulations. My office does not. Instead, we have many programs and grants and whatnot that we administer. I'll also get into a little bit more of what we do as I go on, but I just wanted to kind of make that clear. So we foster collaboration between government agencies at all levels of government and employers in all sectors. As Gina said, I personally work as a policy advisor on the Workforce Systems Policy Team. We have many federal partners, such as the Mental Health Agency at the federal level, TANF, the Employment and Training Administration. I'm not going to go through them all. I thought we were running a little short on time, so skip that part a little bit. In addition to building collaborations at the national level, ODEP also implements a range of initiatives in the states to help develop or validate particular approaches to service delivery in support of employment. For example, we have a National Technical Assistance Center, the LEAD Center, housed at the National Disability Institute in Washington, D.C. LEAD Center staff have implemented pilots across the country to validate a number of policy priorities such as advancing financial literacy and assisting our American Job Centers to be able to provide meaningful, effective services to all job seekers who come through their doors, including job seekers with disabilities. One priority of the Workforce Systems Policy Team is customized employment. We recently completed a series of focus groups with employers who hired people with disabilities in customized jobs. A report on this will be coming out very soon, but one important thing we learned from these focus groups is that it's really important to view businesses as customers and take steps to understand their business needs in tandem with the needs of individual job seekers they serve. We learned that we should strive to understand that businesses make decisions based on business needs, not vocational rehabilitation needs. We learned that foundation for success is trust, and the key to trust is effective communication. And of course, the key to effective communication is listening. We learned that we need to listen to businesses about their expectations and their needs. Successful partnerships require us to speak to business interests in business terminology. One basic example is the difference between business and employer. While many of us may use these terms interchangeably, businesses do not typically define themselves primarily as an employer. Rather, they produce products or services that are sold in the marketplace. That purpose, and not providing employment, is their reason for being, and that's perfectly okay and logical. So, by singularly focusing on their role as employer, disability service providers assisting individuals to pursue employment-integrated environments may convey the wrong message. They may convey that a business is expected to create a job where none exist, when in reality, what we needed to do is listen to what tasks the business needs done and figure out how we can help them fulfill and meet these needs. That's where the whole notion of job carving and job customization comes in. There are effective strategies to serve the needs of both individuals and businesses. One of the businesses that took part in our focus groups was a small veterinary clinic. One of the tasks they needed done to be more efficient was cleaning of animal cages. Some of their part-time, often high school-aged employees without disabilities tried to breeze through this task. However, the veterinary clinic much preferred the individuals with disabilities who were in customized jobs because these individuals took the time needed to clean the cages properly. This particular business said that people with disabilities saved them money because they did not have to redo the sometimes hurried, sometimes sloppy work of the workers without disabilities who had this task as part of their job. Furthermore, some of the accommodations the clinic made to help their employees with disabilities helped everyone. They developed a numbering system for the animal cages and a color-coded system to indicate the status of the cage. Green maybe meant clean, red perhaps meant dirty. These little tweaks made the entire workplace more efficient. Now, working in the veterinary clinic might not have been the right job for someone else, of course. Discovery and customization were essential. Other employment supports were essential too. Not all placements are the right match, and there are difficulties and complexities, certainly. People from all stakeholder groups involved have to be patient and flexible. At ODEP, we not only talk the talk, we walk the walk. I myself have a significant visual impairment. I'm legally blind, I cannot drive, I cannot read regular print. Maybe people in the back row can even read my speech. I don't know, but as you can tell, I'm having a hard time reading it myself. So there you go. Several of my coworkers are also blind. Some have CP, others have mental health disabilities. One of our leaders has a spinal cord injury. We all use various accommodations to get the job done. In fact, in my opinion, our disabilities are assets because we can speak to the people we serve in a way that people without disabilities cannot. Now, I don't know if this conference is in October by default or by design, but either way, it's most apropos. As you may know, October is ODEP's favorite time of year. That's because it's National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Yay! And of course, being the federal government, we have an acronym for that, NDEAM. Let me say that at ODEP and the Department of Labor overall, we want all people to have the opportunity to pursue and achieve their American dream. This includes, of course, Americans with disabilities, whatever the nature of those disabilities may be. Yet, as you know, even during these times of record high employment overall, a significant portion of our nation's potential productivity remains untapped. And as you also know, the disparity is particularly acute among people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. During NDEAM, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring all Americans, including Americans with disabilities, can work and succeed. That's because we believe everybody has something to contribute, and we believe, indeed we know, that our nation is stronger when they are empowered to do so. In this spirit, the theme for NDEAM this year is America's Workforce, Empowering All. And I am happy to say that Secretary of Labor Alexander Acosta is wholly committed to this concept, to empowering all on multiple levels. He knows that, from a sheer numbers perspective, increasing the employment of underrepresented groups, not only people with disabilities, but also veterans, older Americans, parents who've taken time off work to focus on their families, and others, is how to make a strong economy even stronger. So just to, bring that point home again, increasing the employment of underrepresented groups is how to make a strong economy even stronger. But we all know there is another more holistic perspective. Secretary Acosta was previously Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights under President George W. Bush. In that role, the Americans with Disability Act was a key part of the legal infrastructure guiding his division's work. Drawing upon this experience, he understands that increasing employment opportunities for people with disabilities advances our nation's founding principle of opportunity for all. He understands that work empowers us, again, all of us, in more ways than one. Like so much in our great nation, NDEAM's true spirit lies at the grassroots level, with activities and events organized by groups across the country. And again, whether by design or default, we are glad to count yours among them this year. NDEAM is a time to celebrate and educate and to reflect and reaffirm. It's a time to emphasize the importance of ensuring all Americans, including Americans with disabilities, can put their skills and talents to work as they contribute to the workforce. It's an opportunity for our nation's employers to recommit to a workplace welcoming of those skills, talents, and contributions this month and every month. In short, it's a time to ensure America's workforce empowers all. And I think I've made it quite clear we mean all, even people with significant disabilities. Our mission at ODEP is to develop and influence policies that increase the number of employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We promote policies and coordinate with employers and all levels of government to increase workplace success for people with disabilities. We work with states and service providers that request our help in offering competitive integrated employment as an option or in transitioning to it altogether. We work to show them and individuals with disabilities and their families what's possible. Coordination is a critical part of what we do at ODEP, and I know you understand the importance of this since it's also critical to everything you do, both as individual service providers and Together for Choice Coalition. To do this effectively, we must work with provider systems that are not afraid to consider changes to how they organize and fund their services in order to make them better, to expand the choices available. And when we find such organizations, we truly value them because they help us understand what we can do better to promote positive change. To this spirit, we consider Together for Choice and all of you here today important allies in our efforts. Dialogue, two-way communication is the foundation for progress in disability employment and effective public policy, and we value the opportunity to engage in it with you. Now, to stay at a very high level for a moment, I want to note that ODEP is cross-disability in focus, and under this administration, we are pursuing a number of policy priorities. I'm just gonna name a few of them. First is increasing people's ability to stay at work and return to work. Our goal is a strong and robust American workforce, and obviously this means keeping people on the job or returning them to work as soon as possible following an injury or illness. We also are trying to increase apprenticeship opportunities, and we are also reaching out to veterans organizations to help some veterans with the most significant disabilities obtain employment as well. So we are busy across all of these areas, and there are more, but again, trying to cut back a little bit. But for today, I want to focus on the state-focused work we are doing for people with significant disabilities and the providers who serve them, since this impacts much of your work. We see this as a time of enormous opportunity for providers and provider systems and for the people with disabilities that you serve. Many of you are likely familiar with the Employment First philosophy and perhaps even ODEP's Employment First initiative. Employment First goes beyond ODEP's work. It is a national, bipartisan, grassroots-led movement that is centered on the premise that all citizens, including individuals with significant disabilities, are capable of full participation in employment and community life. We believe Employment First is about expanding opportunity and expanding choice. ODEP's Employment First initiative, the Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program, which we lovingly call EFS-LMP, started with just 4 states in 2012. Today, 23 states have received intensive technical assistance on a range of topics requested by the states as necessary to align their policies with Employment First. As one of the ODEP staff leading the Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program, I can say with confidence that it has been helping states develop policy to increase employment for people with a full range of disabilities. The program does this in 3 ways: through core state technical assistance, Vision Quest technical assistance, and our community of practice. I want to spend a few minutes talking specifically about Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program, as there are aspects of this initiative that may be of particular interest to you. And I want to say that ODEP recognizes that provider programs and networks are particularly important partners in our Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program activities. So this program, I'm going to start calling it EFS-LMP now, is application-based, and states must apply as a team of state agencies, including vocational rehabilitation, education, Medicaid, mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities, and the workforce system. One of these agencies takes the lead and develops a technical assistance plan. ODEP then provides technical assistance hours from subject matter experts. Our SMEs have a range of experiences and do the heavy lifting, writing the first draft of a policy, acting as a mediator between various agencies to come to a compromise, or act as the neutral outside voice to help determine next steps. One of the most popular core tracks for states participating in EFS-LMP is provider transformation. Transformation, in this case, is a slow process that requires baby steps. The SMEs that I mentioned earlier are often CEOs or executive directors of providers who made difficult decisions required to move their provider agencies into the 21st century. Keeping in mind that the goal of EFS-LMP is to increase competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities, sometimes participating providers opt to use their SME hours to train staff on discovery and customized employment. Sometimes they opt for trainings on how to best speak to businesses, even implementing a statewide boot camp on specific strategies. Still other times, it's how to be the most effective and efficient job coach possible. Regardless of the particular TA a provider opts for, each and every new provider that participates in EFS-LMP will start with a self-assessment that is facilitated by the subject matter expert. Often this self-assessment helps determine where the technical assistance will be most effective. As one of the federal employees who implements this program, I have seen that the technical assistance provided for provider transformation does not last for just 9 months. The transformation process can take 3, 4, or even more years. This has been an area of interest of mine for a long time. I went to a conference several years ago before I started working at the Department of Labor, and one provider told their story of how it took them a full 10 years to make the changes they wanted to make. And I would say that a lot of these providers, at least the ones that I've spoken to, would even say, you know, we're always changing, we're always trying to improve. So I don't think it's a process that really ever ends. So another source of technical assistance from EFS-LMP is through Vision Quest, and Vision Quest is a 3-phased 9-month policy development track. So I probably wrote a solid 2 pages on Vision Quest, but I'm gonna spare you. It's really about bringing various state agencies together to develop policies, but the one key point I do wanna drive home is that through Vision Quest, we try to bring all the stakeholders to the table. So let's see. Oh yes. I think it's very important to point out that very soon as tomorrow, we will be accepting applications for this year's rendition of the Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program. So we're looking forward to that. To put EFS-LMP into perspective, ODEP provided intensive technical assistance to 13 states last year. Currently, our community of practice, Gina mentioned this, but since that bio was written, it's actually increased. So our community of practice is now at 2,600 subscribers from all 50 states. Our community of practice offers monthly webinars as well as serves as a listserv to send information to members about federal announcements. In fact, if you're interested in becoming a part of our community of practice, you can do so. I think the easiest way to do that is to type EFS-LMP Community of Practice, subscribe into a search engine. Alternatively, feel free to come find me after this speech, and I would be happy to give you my contact information. All right, so now let's talk about some of the resources developed by EFS-LMP. I think this might be the part of the speech you'd be most excited about, but I don't know. I'm not really one to judge. So, to date, more than 100 provider organizations have received direct on-site mentoring and coaching from ODEP's EFS-LMP subject matter experts. In 2017, we released a provider transformation manual. Along with this release, we produced a 6-part webinar series that had more than 170 providers organizations participating. This year, we created a provider transformation manual 2.0. This updated and expanded manual takes a deeper dive into areas that providers identified as critical as they work to transition and expand choice. We have already released the 6 accompanying webinars, and the Provider Transformation Manual 2.0 was just released this week. It's hot off the press, so I encourage you to check it out. These webinars and manuals are available on ODEP's Drive website. Drive stands for Data and Resources to Inspire a Vision of Employment. And you can access this website by going to drivedisabilityemployment.org. But not only does the Drive website have those couple resources that I just mentioned, it's actually a hub of statistics for each state and nationwide. We have over 80 data points that are represented on this website. You also can take a look at various policies in each state, whether that be legislation, executive orders, memorandum of understanding, grant opportunities in your state, or grants that your state have received. This particular website also has access to the WIOA state plans, and there is a table on there that sort of shows the various some various topics, and you can click on that topic for your state and see what your particular state plan says. There's even a comparison tool, so if you wanted to see what your state is doing compared to another state, you can compare them side by side. And my favorite part is the subscription tool. So whenever the website is updated, based on the areas you choose, so you can choose your state, you can choose your area of focus, you can choose what statistics are most important to you, you will receive an email when the website is updated, so you don't have to check it constantly. Also, on this website, there is the Provider Transformation Hub, and we have it organized into various areas, including leadership and setting the tone for change, strategic planning, making it happen, operations focus, funding diversification, individualized planning and service, consumer focus, program and staff development on effective practice, and data collection and analysis. So our webinar series and provider transformation manuals provide a plethora of information and resources for providers across all of these areas. All right, I'm gonna conclude with just one more example. Here we go. So this is about an unlikely partnership that was fostered through EFS LMP. This took place in a place not too far away from here in the state of Michigan. In this particular state, the Developmental Disabilities Council is very active in EFS LMP, and both the DD Council and the state provider agency group called MARO are very influential with regards to state level policy making, and they have some fundamental differences of opinion. However, one day the DD Council picked up the phone and called MARO. She said, "Hi, I have this opportunity to provide some of your providers technical assistance to help create competitive integrated employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Do you think any of your providers would be interested?" Well, she was basically expecting MARO to say no, but to her surprise, MARO accepted the invitation. MARO did not change their stance on some key issues, nor did the DD Council. However, they started talking, the dialogue I mentioned earlier. In the end, they worked together to obtain an appropriation in their state budget of $500,000 to provide technical assistance to providers who were interested in learning about ways to help create more employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Now, yeah, that's great. Now, Michigan uses their EFS LMP resources in other ways. But they credit EFS LMP as the catalyst for not only forming the partnership between the DD Council and MARO, but also the ability to secure the appropriation in the budget. So in closing, we know that some of the biggest barriers to employment for people with disabilities are low expectations and lack of opportunities to choose the environment that is best for them. But we also know that can change because we've seen it do so. A full array of choices results in a full array of possibilities. ODEP stands ready to embrace these changes and advance the National Employment First movement by focusing on the choices possible, by focusing on what's possible. We need, and we are pleased to count, coalitions such as yours among our collaborators to learn from and work with you to build what's necessary to expand choices. And we are committed to working to ensure that state and national public policy supports you and those you serve so that they can live life to the fullest, something that entails, as it does for nearly all of us, working. We're committed to empowering all this month and every month, and we look forward to collaborating with you and your membership to achieve this goal. So again, I apologize that Patrick couldn't be here today. I encourage you to check out the Drive website, and if you're interested, to sign up for the EFS LMP Community of Practice. Thank you again so much for having me here today at the Together for Choice conference. I believe we're doing questions.
Yeah, if you have, can you guys write the questions? Is that possible?
Unless you want,
are you okay with that?
I mean, if you are able to call on people, because
yes,
I can't
could do that.
see you.
Okay.
Thank you. So looking toward the future, how might we increase employment for individuals with developmental disabilities when it's predicted that artificial intelligence will replace many of the jobs that population traditionally holds?
I mean, that's a good question. I wish I had an answer to that. But I do know that it's not just people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are going to be affected by artificial intelligence. That's going to be a challenge for many groups. And I know this is an issue that my office is working on. There's a team in my office called Employment-Related Supports, and they specifically are thinking about this issue because one of their major initiatives is the autonomous vehicles issue. I don't know if you consider it issue. I kind of consider it exciting because of the potential opportunities, but at the same time, you know, autonomous vehicles are going to be displacing, or likely going to be displacing, some people who work in that sector. So we are working on it, and if that answer did not satisfy you, feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave some business cards up here as well.
Are there tax incentives for businesses who hire those with disabilities?
Yes, there are. I am not an expert on that. I think it's called the Work Incentive Tax Credit. I don't know enough about it to speak to you about it very smartly. But as far as I know, they do exist. And I do also know in Utah, I believe, there is a pilot project run by, I think it's called Pathways for Careers, that's also piloting this as well.
Right here. What do you think will happen if an employer is asked to employ a person with significant intellectual disabilities at $15 an hour, and then they will have to hire a support person to help that, to assist the profoundly disabled person for another $15 an hour?
So this is my personal take on this. I also want to mention that Patrick Mannix is a few rungs higher than I am at the department. But in general, my Rose Warner response to that question is that when any individual is trained properly for a job and when there is a real need that they can fulfill, kind of like that veterinary clinic I talked about earlier, the business will see that hiring the individual with disability makes sense. Also, as far as their supports go, my understanding, and again, I don't know, like, you know, I guess in the real world how often this happens, but a job coach is there to help the individual learn the ropes, get acquainted with the job. Eventually, whether it be through technology, whether it be through natural supports, the job coach can then eventually fade. So yes, is there a little bit of investment up front? Yes. But it's also my understanding, and again, I feel like I'm talking in kind of generalities here, which can sometimes get you in trouble, but that, you know, people with disabilities are a good investment because they are sometimes, and again, I use that very lightly, willing to stay on a job longer than maybe those high schoolers, for example, who might go on to college or leave or whatnot. So you are investing a lot in training new employees and things of that nature. So I hope that at least somewhat answers your question.
A very quick question. It has to do with 14C.
What's that?
I know the next talk is on 14C.
No,
What
I'm
is the
kidding.
position of your department
No,
in
no.
14C?
I was kidding. I was trying to make a joke. Anyway, sorry. What's your question about 14C? I will try my best to answer it. That is really the wage and hour department's, you know, wheelhouse, but I'll do my best. What was the question?
She missed the question.
The Department of Labor, as far as I understand it, I don't want to say doesn't have a position, right? Because that's a cop-out, right? But the Secretary of Labor did ask ODEP and the Wage and Hour Division for a binder on 14C. But regardless, the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor implements Section 14C. They hand out the 14C certificates. They also do the enforcement. So they go to the various, or at least my understanding is, they go to the 14C holders and do some type of evaluation to make sure that workers are being paid accurately based on the test, the wage test. I'm sorry, I can't think of the word at the moment, the productivity test. So obviously, it's something we do, right? So it makes sense that, you know, we are at least somewhat for it, right? We're definitely, I don't think, like, against it. But again, I personally have never met Secretary Acosta, and if I could ask him one question, that would probably be the question I'd ask him.
Rose, I just want to say that you made the reading of a speech very enjoyable. I want to thank you for that.
It's not my preference to read. I know I'd rather use a PowerPoint, but I had about 48 hours. So again, I tried my best. And thank you for the compliment.
So I've attended some of the Employment First, gatherings in my state.
Which state?
State of Kansas.
Kansas, okay.
And served on our DD council there. But I have to say that the disparaging remarks by professionals against dedicated families has been quite troubling to me. And particularly those who have the most profound disabilities who, when you consider liability issues, dangerous maladaptive behaviors of those with severe and profound autism, so to support and kind of to join with Mickey's question about, are you going to pay $15 an hour and then pay a job coach? You're not going to get by with just a job coach, and I just say this with all due respect. You're going to have a behavioral analyst who understands this particular population and people that understand the nuances of people who are actually significant liabilities to businesses. And I do know personally families who own businesses that won't hire their own children because of liability issues. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I'd also like to ask you how many, when you talk about stakeholders, I've found that parents are often, there may be a token population of parents as stakeholders, but the people like my grandson who has profound disabilities, they're not represented, and they're not considered in policy making. Thank you for allowing me to share that.
So I don't think I heard a question. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I do know that within the Implement First State Leadership Mentoring Program, which is the very small little thing I know a little bit something about, we do have webinars with parents on who speak about their experiences and the struggles they go through. And in the feedback forms we get from our webinars, parents' perspective is one of the things that the community is very hungry for. So we try to meet those needs. I'm sorry, I can't do better than that.
Thank you very much for speaking today. My question is, there's been a lot of talk about transitioning out of Section 14C, and obviously your office is well aware of the very high unemployment rate for individuals with developmental disabilities. Has there been any attempt to study what will happen once Section 14C is transitioned out, how that's going to affect the employment rates?
Well, I think it's appropriate to say that, of course, Congress is the only entity that has the power to change 14C. So that doesn't have, anything to do with Department of Labor. If something does go through Congress, then of course, Department of Labor will write regulations and whatnot, but of course not my office, right? But as far as studies go, I think that would fall to the Government Accountability Office, but I also know the National Council on Disability was looking into this issue as well. They had a report that came out this week. I've admittedly not had a chance to read it yet. I will be, but that's about as much as I can say on that.